Hi everyone, my name is Jason Grant, and I have decided to do debunking of this post by Jakob Nielsen, who posted about his mind shifts in 2005. Now, before I start, I would like to say that in my early career, sometime in late 90s or early 2000s, I used to read Jakob Nielsen's website pretty much every day or every time he posted, and I really respected his opinion in the realm of usability, which is, let's say, a big aspect of UX design in general. And I learned a lot from Jakob Nielsen. So I kind of in my mind, I see him as one of the elders in the community and the teachers of mine, especially back in the day when we didn't have formal teachings in UX design and usability. So I have full respect for Jakob Nielsen, and in one of his comments, I noticed that he posted that he doesn't make any money anymore from his content, which I think is a shame. But I also am going to show the reasons why I think that is really. Now, myself, I've been in UX design for around 20 years now, worked on the governments, banking sector, all sorts of startups, tried my own startups, coded my own apps for a very long time. In fact, I started coding when I was 9. And just generally love computer science, but also over the last decade or really longer, I've been immersing myself in the realm of transpersonal psychology a lot and really doing a lot of my own usability studies to really understand how the human mind works. 10 years ago, I designed and developed a program called Fresh Mind, which I've used myself in order to actually redesign my own mind. So, where Jakob here says how I changed my mind in 2025, I suddenly redesigned my own mind 10 years ago. And since then, I've been continuously evolving it through self-evolutionary mind changes quite frequently and quite radically. So I'm very, very fond of this whole theme of psychology, mind, AI, computer science, usability, UX, business. I studied business at a master's degree as well. And really, these are all kind of my passions all in one. Hence, that's why this article, which I believe has been written heavily with AI or with, at least if not completely by AI, with a lot of help from AI. I think this article is mostly not really useful. And perhaps dare I even say not even usable. And I'll go phrase by phrase through this and also do some sketching as I go along. This is all kind of impromptu. Haven't really rehearsed this, so I'll go one by one. So Jakub says, how I changed my mind in 2025. After 43 years in usability, I've had to unlearn decades of thinking. Now, this is implying that all this thinking in the past has been wrong or basically is just kind of not really useful. Let's see. AI evolves so fast that predictions must change too. Here are my six biggest mindset shifts to 2025. Now, this thing of AI evolves so fast is kind of questionable, and it definitely feels like it's doing that, but um, it evolves so fast in what sense? It evolves certainly as kind of technology, but in terms of usefulness and usability of it, I don't see so much evolution. And I postulate and argue that that's the reason for that is because actually UX designers have not been involved in the process of evolving AI. The people that have been involved in the process of evolving AI are mostly engineers and people who really don't know much about mind and psychology. They know about mathematics, computers, sciencey kind of things, and lots of data. Uh, and really, mind is a much more complex super quantum computer, something like that. So I'll go straight on to unpicking this article. So first point, he says the competence inversion, humans as liability. There's a very, very strong word here, liability. So he says early 2025, AI augmented humans who verify outputs. Okay, fair enough. Let's say that's like AI, people prompting AI and then verifying what the output is. Usually, I find it that humans would typically expect the AI to output the correct thing, right? You would expect the AI to output something useful, and really what you want to do is you want to use that output somewhere else. For, let's say it's created a report and you want that report, the report to present to the CEO of a company or something like that. But what he's saying is you were verifying the output. It's like, why would you be verifying the output if the AI is outputting something correct, right? And then he says, late 2025, humans often add negative value. Well, all of the AI was trained on human generated information. So AI is already generated on what he then postulates, or the AI here postulates as negative value. Well, first of all, why were humans needed to verify the outputs in the first place? If AI, this auto magic, magnificent, super thinking machine, was already generating something useful, why were humans needed to verify it? And then in late 2025, humans are adding negative value. In what way? By prompting it wrong? By how do humans even add negative value to AI? I'm not sure how this happens, but data shows human intervention can lower output quality since we are slower. That makes no sense. What data shows this? And what human intervention, because most of the time humans just prompt AI. So asking a question of the AI cannot really lower the output quality. You might just ask a bad prompt, like a too generic prompt, and you just don't get the specific enough answer that you were looking for. But that shouldn't lower output quality, and it's got nothing to do with slowness. It's got nothing to do with slowness. More biased. Data shows human intervention can lower output since we're slower, more biased. But all the AI was trained on human data, and that data is as biased as we are. So we correct accurate AI with erroneous intuition. Well, what erroneous intuition are we talking about here? This is a very nebulous sentence. And how do we correct the AI with erroneous intuition? It's very nebulous kind of sentence. It doesn't really make much sense. And I'm guessing that this whole thing was summarized by AI, and AI doesn't really make much sense when it does these summaries. That's why I find it that if I try to get AI to actually write something for me that is of really kind of proper sense making, isn't from first principles, it struggles with that because it constructs these sentences that sound uh, useful and interesting and usable, but when you actually unpick what it's saying, it's not really saying anything. It's vacuous. Uh, so that says new mandate, set goals, then get out of the way. Well, what does that mean to set goals? Well, it's a prompt. Okay, I want this and this and this, and get out of the way. Well, that's what humans do when they're prompting AI. But how does that happen? Set goals, get out of the way. Um, I don't know how this works. It's confusing. It is, again, another sentence that doesn't make sense, especially considering that if humans and when humans set goals, those goals are always subject to what Jacob's AI here summary basically already says that these goals are slow, more biased, and we have erroneous intuition. So all that would go into setting the goals as well. So it doesn't really, this approach doesn't really offer anything better. Uh, so I was thinking I need to kind of draw something, but I don't think I need to. It's pretty clear, I think, from what I'm unpicking here. The second one, the interface extinction, no more UI. This has always kind of been a funny thing, like the kind of cliche of the best UI is no UI. Of course, as I'm speaking to you, my UI here is my voice, and your consumption of that UI is ears and your eyes, right? Although right now, as I'm speaking, there's not really much point in you using your eyes. You can just listen to me at this point. So there is always UI. UI cannot be eradicated. In fact, the nature of observable existence is that everything is UI. We're always interacting with some sort of UI. UI cannot be extinguished. So it says early 2025, optimizing GUIs, and he still uses this beloved GUIs, graphical user interfaces, although interfaces for good sort of 20 plus years now have been beyond graphical. So they've been audible, textual. In fact, you could argue that, really the modern AI like ChatGPT isn't really graphical. And that's actually a big problem that actually something like ChatGPT, an OpenAI interface, is not graphical enough. It's too much text. That's not really graphical UI. So that's a problem with something like ChatGPT and LLMs in general. Not really everything is a chat, and that's definitely not the best form or the most usable and useful interactive way for us to interact with computers. It says in early 25, optimizing GUIs with better forms, better screens, faster development via AI. I don't think anyone was ever really kind of talking about better forms other than Luke Roblerovsky, because he made a whole business out of that. And my friend Adam, and I forget his surname, who works at Gov UK, because he also made this business out of that. But better screens, I think, UX designers have maybe started failing at this for a while now as well, and faster development via AI. The thing about software, I've always found that it wasn't really about faster development. It was really about get get shit done right. That's actually really kind of the hard thing. It's not so much fast, but get the useful stuff in the right format to the user. That's really the reason why things either succeed or don't. Uh, Late 2025, he says, the GUI, again, our beloved GUI, GUI, is effectively dead. Yeah, it's dead because ChatGPT killed it. Because it's forced everything into text conversation, which we don't actually want. I don't want to constantly sit on the screen and read. And even though if I say keep it short, it still keeps it verbose. Users simply state intent. AI generates bespoke disposable interfaces or executes directly. This, I don't think this will ever work that AI generates bespoke disposable interfaces because those interfaces are disposable not just as in I'm going to use them once and then throw them away. They're disposable because they're trash. Okay, trash meaning they have no usability and good UX, and people expect great usability and UX because they see that everywhere else. Um, so either AI is going to completely create disposable or trash UX and UI because that's already been happening anyway with modern UX designers who've sort of learned too quickly and sort of just made mostly pretty screens but not usable screens per se. Uh, because of all sorts of agile, let's get things done faster. So usually you get things done faster when you're not testing and not verifying with users and customers, and then you get it out there, and then you realize it doesn't work, and either the project stops or gets defunded, or you're like, oh, now we're gonna have to rebuild that thing because even though we built it fast, no one wants to use it. We've all been there many, many times. That's why the whole field of UX design and usability and testing and validation, verification came about. That's why it exists at all. And so it says AI generates bespoke disposable interfaces and executes directly. Well, I'm not sure what it means executes directly because this is basically the impossible, certainly with current AI, certainly. It can execute within its own kind of sand box of generating the UI. Um, or it kind of generates something that isn't really usable and useful and doesn't really work. So even when its own sandbox, it fails, but it can't plug into the bigger ecosystem, as in I can use that thing and it fires off into some other realm that actually can execute some value added activities. So we've moved from interface design to intent specification. This intent specification was always really a thing, as far as I'm concerned, should have been in good design. In fact, I wrote an article 7 years ago that really design thinking doesn't really start with empathize. It should start with intend and then decide and then empathize. Because if we don't have the right intent, we don't really know what we're designing. We can't even focus our own minds, let alone AI mind, into a direction. So intent was always a missing piece in good design, and great designers just intuitively knew that we need to first intend things and focus people, and then we can design from there. And that interface design, we can't really move away from this, but it's downstream from intent for sure. And then he says the best UI is no UI. This is absolute and utter trash of a statement because no UI is just, as I said, not possible. It's there's always some sort of UI, and if the machine is serving humans, the humans have to consume the outcomes or validate, verify, check, approve via one of the senses, haptic, vocal, auditory, vision, etc. Or if the machine is working for another machine, there is always the UI via API that machine needs to interact with. So that UI has to exist in some form or another, usually in some sort of JSON files and headless HTTP requests, etc. Okay, so that's release. We just said number one is kind of garbagey trash. Number two is also just doesn't make sense. Number three, the visual singularity, nano banana era. Okay, sounds good. Early 2025, AI revolution was text focused. It still is very majority text focused. Visual AI had major artifacts, bad hands, unreadable text. Sure. November's Nano Banana Pro changed everything. It's the ChatGPT moment for visual communication. Now, non-designers create professional grade visuals. Sure, these professional grade visuals may come out, but they might look great, they might even feel great, and so on. But again, it's going back to this outputs. We're looking for outputs to do something, as in create some sort of results. So then it says deliverable shifted from text reports to comics and movies. Now, comics, I tried creating comics. Is one of the famous use cases for comics was when Google created the comic book to introduce the Chrome browser. This was way back, maybe it's like 15 years ago now, a while back. And I thought, my God, I'm going to use comics from now on to communicate every one of my UX design projects. And wherever I tried to use comics, it didn't go down well anywhere. Now, I might say, like, well, maybe I created bad comics. Maybe, I'm just rubbish at comics. But actually, I don't know any other UX designer who ever used comics to communicate their requirements. And I think there is a deep psychological reason for this. Comics, there's a word in there, comic. They are too jokey. They are considered by stakeholders in senior enterprises as too not serious. We're usually in a serious business. My last client was BP, British Petroleum, big corporation. There's nothing comical about it. It's serious oil and gas corporation with lots and lots of challenges. if I present to them a comic book, they think I'm a joker. They don't take me seriously. These people expect serious documents. There are corporate standards for documentation, etc., etc. So comics never really worked as a tool or deliverable. And movies also, they are actually very hard to generate consistently with AI, and we need tooling that connects one from the other to the other to the other. And certainly doing bigger and longer movies is quite tricky. Now, I'm not saying this is not possible, but again, it's not necessarily a deliverable to communicate design with very effectively because it also takes quite a bit of time and it's subject to AI not really rendering it properly. So this point is not necessarily 100% garbage, but it's sort of like, yeah, but what is the actual result? And is this the right kind of output that we're looking for? And the answer is probably not. Number four, the tempo pivot, embracing slow AI. Now we're going back to something that is very sort of hypocritical here or counter argument to earlier points where it was like humans are slower, but then saying embrace slow AI. So now AI is allowed to be slow, but humans aren't. So when humans slow down, usually they're thinking, and guess what? AI requires it needs to slow down when it's thinking. Why is that? Because processing takes longer time. So early 2025, speed was king. Okay, let's say, I don't know, let's say that's fine. Sub-second responses, edge computing, reduced latency, decades of web usability wisdom. Okay, fine, but AI wasn't really doing that. In fact, AI probably speeded up in its responses, especially with the latest response as I'm recording this from Mistral AI. It's faster, uh, so it's actually responding faster because people are like, you know what? It's thing actually the downside of this thing is slow because people increasingly have ADHD, and when you ask something and it's going to take, I don't know, 20, 30 seconds to respond, we know from usability studies because people want instant responses, even sub-second responses, when they click something and say, "Oh, I'm going to take 30 seconds to think about it," they go off to another app or another screen or another tab and they forget. So actually, humans want faster AI responses, especially to surface level questions like, what's the population of Bosnia? I want that quickly. I don't want it to start thinking for 6 seconds. I need that instantly. And in fact, we were able to get that from Google, etc., instantly. So, so I don't know what this thing was like. Speed was king because it was slower before, but now it's getting faster. And then late 2025, reasoning models need minutes, hours, even days. Yes, they do, because for actual, real, deep thinking, humans also need more time. That's why we always used to say the good design takes time because we have to think through so many different parameters, options, and even very advanced intellectuals need time to think it through. So then it's saying the UX challenge shifted from reducing latency to designing for it. Okay, so we're now saying actually AI is also slower, so using chain of thought visualizations to maintain trust during wait. So we just have to say, this thing actually needs to also think, and we now need to do hacks to tell users, this thing is thinking and is adding value, and sometimes actually it's just kind of faux thinking, which Don Norman, actually your ex-partner and colleague in Norman Nielsen Group, who said, when they designed a famous sort of tax calculator app, they said they added this faux kind of processing thing to just make users feel like the system is doing something of advanced kind of processing, but actually was very straightforward calculation. So we don't know if this thinking thing is a bit like the loading time from Microsoft or installation or updating time. It's always kind of wrong. Yeah, so we can't really estimate for these things. So yeah, I'm not really sure what this is saying, and I'm not really sure why we need to be embracing slow AI instead of slow humans. It kind of seems swapping just slow machine for slow human if that was the case. Okay. So this really I don't understand. Five, the career definition, agency over skills. Early 2025, learn UX strategy. I'm not sure that was really kind of a thing, really, because most people are not UX strategists. They actually don't really even know what the word strategy means. And increasingly, they don't know what UX is. And the learning resources are by and large trash, really, especially in the UX realm. So, okay, if that was the case, let's say that was the case, but then says climb the corporate ladder. Well, most UX designers never really climbed further than being kind of like a lead or some sort of design director or whatever, in which case, as soon as design director comes to a corporate, he's kind of just doing the corporate work. He's not really doing design for the most part. And then master business skills. Yeah, exactly. So climb the corporate ladder, master business skills, and you become a businessman, a business thinker, and you're not really practicing design anymore for the most part because business is like, how can we squeeze more money out of the customer? And that's why we typically have the user tension is with the business because the user wants more value and the business wants to extract more value. So as you become a business person up in the executive, typically you're just extracting more value, which is what Tim Cook has been doing at Apple, extracting more value. And that's why Jonathan Ive left Apple because he's like, I want to add value to the customer, and this guy wants to extract value to the stakeholders. So, what he's then saying, late 2025, agency redefined as a personal trait. Well, agency in what sense? Agency as in employees inside corporations have agency. Usually, employees inside corporations have roles to fulfill. Every time I've gone outside of the realms of my role, I've been basically told by the management, don't go outside of your realm. And if I continue doing that, I basically get fired. So redefine this personal trait, the volition to decide what should be done. Okay, well, what should be done is typically decided by the leadership teams, and they kind of tend to command and control in most companies. Now, some companies might say, like, oh, our people decide, we sort of just delegate the kind of through some sort of OKR, objective key results, and then individuals decide what should be done. Okay, sure. Well, so that if that's the case, then the volition to decide what should be done in any corporation that practices OKRs properly, this decide what should be done is really what should have been practiced by employees anyway, whether they're using AI or not. So as execution costs drop to zero, the only remaining value is direction. Okay, so basically prompting. So you're saying if I write a good prompt as a human with good agency, then that's really valuable. Skills matter less than vision, but skills of prompting now become the skills that are valuable. Because if we don't have the skills of prompting, then that's the agency cannot be executed. So we always say that like soft skills are the hardest, and soft skills nowadays is really understand to understand, to be able to get the intent from, let's say, the business or the stakeholders or even the customers. What do customers really want? They might tell us this, and that. And the soft skills actually, even though they said this, and that, it's the actually fourth thing that they meant that I'm extracting from that. And that's a big skill. So those skills of both understanding, empathizing, and really understanding really are the real skills. And then using the agency to decide and so on. So it's like really intend and decide as per my article about integral design thinking. So intend and decide are the real skills, and then certainly empathize, prototype, test, and design, and so on. So so skills matter less than vision, but it's like so okay, so the skills are actually the skills of envisioning are still skills, right? So we're always skills are always the things really that so visioning is a skill, yeah. So um, people are not really just kind of born with vision. Vision arises from observing lots and lots of behaviors. That's kind of why Moses was famously, the big prophet in the Bible, because he went around, observed a bunch of common behaviors amongst the people, and just came back and wrote them onto a tablet as 10 commandments. It just said, this is what God commanded. And people are like, wow. It's like, that sounds great because they were already doing it. Okay. He didn't really have any vision. It just kind of penned down what was already happening, which basically was good user researcher. So, okay, so that's really kind of like nebulous. And then six, from prompting to latent space navigation. Whenever I see this word latent, it always kind of creeps me out. It's like, bleh, as I'm not really sure what that means. Someone said like latent challenges. So what does that mean? Scope creep? It's like, yeah, but it just sounds better as latent challenges. Come on, leave, like, please. So early 2025, prompting as literacy. Okay, better phrasing in, better results out. True. And now, actually, even the big design AI sort of super experts will say, actually, if you're getting something bad out of the AI, as in bad output, you're actually your fault because you're not really prompting it correctly. You're not using the prompts in the right way. It's like either too much or too little. Blah, blah, blah. So actually, this prompting as literacy is absolutely definitely necessary, based on the current versions of AI and LLMs that we have. So that's definitely necessary. There's a, and then it says users as writers learning to express intent. 100%. And then these are all skills. These are all skills. And then late 2025, users and as navigators exploring latent space. I don't know where this latent space is. I don't know, but discovering solutions by recognizing rather than perfect articulation. Well, okay, so what is this? I just kind of uh, chuck in some sort of bad prompt or crappy prompt, and then the AI chucks out some sort of solution, and I go, that sounds good, and I'm just gonna navigate further down that road, but then I need to kind of refine that prompt, don't I, in order um, to explore that solution further. So this is less like writing a brief, more like exploring an unfamiliar city. And this is like where I wanted to just kind of do a little um, um, sketch here. There's like, what is it, like unfamiliar city? There's all sorts of roads and things, and like often the time, even still today, as I'm like living in London, UK, big city, I forget where I'm at. Okay, so as a user, I'm gonna be like here, and I'll be like, I've never gone down this road, I've never gone down this road, I've never gone down this road, I've never gone down this road. Never. So if I go up here, and then I go down this road, and then I go down there, and oftentimes I just find myself on back here, and then it's like, oh gosh, did I go down this road? I can't remember. It's not really visually clear, and the AI things. So go down this road, and I'll come here, and then I'll go back here, and then I'm back there, and then back here. So just basically the way you navigate a lost city is, for the most part, if you don't have a good map, which usually actually a design, vision, and blueprint and so on is, you actually just end up going all around and just continuously being lost in a lost city. And that's where I actually want to conclude this thing, that this whole article is actually lost in the space of AI and not really knowing what it's talking about, what it's saying. In fact, all 6 points are basically AI slop. Okay. And again, once again, I want to say that I absolutely love and respect Jakob Nielsen, but this stuff is just no bueno. And thank you very much. If you actually want to really discuss AI and future of what I think and what I believe is more correct, much more correct way of both utilizing AI and thinking and approaching it strategically and properly, along with design, strategy, people management, all these kind of things, reach out to me and let's talk about it. My name is Jason Grant. I'm creator of Designed Company and many other frameworks that actually help people communicate in a much clearer, direct way. I didn't prepare any of this. It was just off the cuff, off the dome, as rappers would say, and basically also showcasing that I can think for myself and I can also like really appreciate people, but not really necessarily respect what they put out in this case because I don't think it's valuable for anyone. Certainly wasn't for me. Thank you very much.